Fred wants to have like, I don't believe we can do this because that's what makes the problem with Matt Green lining stuff. He wants to.
That's what the
Judy
turnover.
said.
I don't think you can ask.
It
Can't
just-
answer.
yes or no.
Survey.
Presentation, then
But we don't want to do that either.
Everybody-
Past the 20
No,
minutes,
exactly. No.
would you
I
support a
agree.
60 or a?
Yeah. So anyway, just confirm that we can't have two issues on a ballot. So,
Do you have your July 8th calendar?
right here.
Okay, there is a West Sound LIO meeting in Bremerton on July 8th.
Oh, really?
And it's an all-day, it's like
She's
9:30
working on it.
to 48. And it's like,
See, I've got July. Nick and Alan are on vacation. I'm,
The sound room.
Yeah.
there's a home builders function I've been asked to participate in, but I could get out of it.
I'm in Montana.
Okay.
I cannot attend it, it's an all-day
Do we
thing.
know?
And it's in Bremerton.
I'm John.
Oh, you're showing it. Okay, I was wondering.
So we are good.
Do we want to go ahead and get started then?
Yeah, I think,
I'll be there.
whenever you're ready, Gary.
Okay, we'll call this closed meeting order at 7:35. First item on the agenda, well, is everybody happy with the agenda?
We're going to add the park from last night to the
Okay.
agenda, and maybe we should add that first since Bob Showers is not yet here, and
Okay.
I assume he was going to come.
I invited him and I didn't hear a response back, so
Okay.
I'm not quite sure if he's gonna be here or not. But yeah, we can discuss that item, and if he's not here, then we can move forward. I told him that we would provide him an update if he did not show up today.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and start with the park discussion.
So I guess where we left off last night was,
We stayed up all night and reworked the numbers and have a solution.
yeah, it's magic. No, we left off, if we want to do all of the park alternatives and do the premium sort of improvements, we're about $185,000 short. At the time, we would be going to construction. And so,
And that construction period would start next fall? Or
next June was the target date, because we're gonna have, when we do the bridge and culvert removal, we gotta do that at a certain time of year.
Okay.
And so, that needs to happen after June 30th, but they can start mobilization and getting things set up June 1st. And we'd ideally bid this in January or February to give them plenty of lead time.
And then Sean and John had a request last night that we research the cost of having an additional gravel parking lot. So there's
Yeah.
another add to scope that we need to consider
Yeah, absolutely.
too.
Yeah, I just
And
think
can
that,
we get away with a gravel park lot?
You can, you're not allowed to have gravel required parking, but if there's no parking requirement, you can create supplemental parking that's not a paved surface. You do have to have stormwater.
Yes.
inflows for it.
how level is the area where the fire station will end up being?
Where the building is, it's level. It's where the parking lot is supposed to be that is not level. And so an interim improvement probably isn't going to be the location of the permanent long-term parking,
Right.
paved parking area, but
Put it where the fire station, get permission from the fire department. Hey,
I
we're
don't
gonna,
think there's any, I have no recollection of any conversation of them starting the construction of their firehouse. I mean, they just closed the one down there on Glenwood.
it's a reserve station and close.
Whatever.
And then reserve stations,
Semantics.
the parking lot, for example, that's shown on the site plan for the reserve fire station, that's needed for training opportunities as well as actual fire response scenarios.
That'll be actually a regular fire
yeah, that's a
station.
regular fire station, so that'll be staff parking.
Okay.
It's the one on the back side that was an active station, up the Glenwood Road.
Right, right.
They've
okay.
turned that into a volunteer station.
Okay.
It was a career station until
Right.
about a year ago.
So if we'd reach out to them to see if, that could be an interim solution, I think for us to move forward with a park of that scale, thinking 12 parking spots is gonna be enough is,
Yeah.
we're gonna have that's a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, and I think that, Mark pointed out that he probably had people parking on the shoulder on Old Clifton, and with a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit out there, I mean, that's not a safe situation.
We're gonna have to turn that into no parking.
Yeah, either that or lower the speed limit and allow it.
I think this could attract a lot of people, not just from our community, but from,
Yeah, if you look at how many people are using the ponds in Bremerton, I mean, I think you're gonna have, hundreds of people here on a hot day trying to get to this park if there's a water feature.
But you look at how many people are using just the play area at South Kitsap Park, and it's well over a dozen on a nice day. A dozen parked cars on a nice day.
so I appreciate that update, because I think we have to figure that out on the front end.
What about I kind of kicked out an idea last night, waiting, if we're gonna, ideally we want to use the park impact fees for, from a number of years, but delaying the construction 1 year and getting, almost half of that shortfall potentially, or a third of it anyway, depending on the development activity, and then we're not borrowing as much. I think the other solution is trying to pick some alternatives that we can delay.
I mean, I think we could look at, because we're gonna know a lot more a year from now on some of this development activity, right?
Yeah,
By the time we were gonna go to construction, we'd be able to have a little better idea what the next
Whether
12 months would be looking
yeah.
like. I still think the meadow area development of fitness equipment could be a phase 2. I think it'd be pretty easy. That meadow area development, while it's not sightly right now, I don't think it's gonna change significantly. I mean, it's been that way for a long time. It's not like over the next 12 months, it's gonna turn into a
the
noxious
difficulty
investment.
is that you're not gonna have access to get equipment in there without tracking it across the improvements that were installed.
Tearing up what we've already done.
I would be interested in some of if we did it by schedules. I can't remember the gentleman's name, Jones and
We
Jones.
bid on the schedules.
Right, if you did the schedules, but the one little, in the wetlands area, that was a $40,000 or $50,000 idea.
Yeah.
And that could perhaps be done, I guess what I'm saying is on a modular basis, that wouldn't impact the rest of the park that much.
Yeah, potentially, though that is one of the key elements that we did include in our grant application.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
something that we
Have
told
to
the
do,
agency
okay.
that we were going to do, and that would require a contract amendment likely.
Is there a time element for the RCO grant?
We currently have it scheduled for construction in 2017. If we want to amend that, we need to talk to the agency and see about delaying it. But as we pointed out last night, going to 2018 is when we're going to be doing the Tremont project,
Correct.
which is that's going to be a heavy lift for Public Works, and I don't know that they can manage.
They're both, okay.
But Tremont, it is so big that we will be hiring
Yeah.
professional consultants to do our inspections. We won't be doing that with staff, but there still is impact to, Mark and the office staff, and accounting and everybody else, payments and so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to minimize what's going on in Tremont, but it is so big that we're gonna have to hire professional consultants to help us.
So we've circled back to the discussion about when we have to pull the trigger. With the realization that we are nearly 300,000 dipping into.
Yeah, well, 300,000 is what is above and beyond what we
Right.
plan to spend, but we're not that short in terms of revenue if you include the impact fees that we'll collect between now and construction.
It's about 200. We'll get about a third of it between
Right.
now and when we go.
Well, the other
Yeah.
thing too is, the impact fees that we're forecasting here, that's really just from that area, right?
I don't know if I brought that piece of paper.
I have
Aren't we
one.
looking at 100 and, the first phase that they're cutting in road right now was 170?
Yeah.
We've got over 800 lots that are projected to come online in the next 6 years. How many of those actually get built is a different question, and is going to be dictated by how fast they can sell houses. We also have a stock of existing lots that are unbuilt in different parts of the city. So you're probably looking at 75% of the new lots that are being created as being on that side of 16, either in McCormick, Stetson Heights, McCormick West. Pulte is actively getting going on McCormick West, and but but then you have on the east side, Andazio Village is 64 lots, you have the Riverstone subdivision, which is like 38, 39 lots. Horseman Heights Phase 2, we just did the Overlook subdivision, which is 28 lots, so you've got at least 100 lots on the east side of town that are gonna be potentially getting developed as well.
Is there any possibility of getting any impact fees from the city of Bremerton? Because their new developments going in there will be using these parks.
There is, they've only got one project that's currently being permitted. We've provided a comment letter to them, and the application is so deficient at this point that they're not anywhere close to moving that forward. They tried to submit a 10-year-old traffic impact analysis that didn't, it still talks about everything being in the county and what the county had previously agreed to. It didn't consider any of the city's improvements. So they have environmental report issues. They have to update all their environmental documents. So at this point, I haven't even heard that that's moving forward.
And we wrote a letter pointing those things out, but we didn't really address parks. It was traffic and the impacts to Old Clifton Road and the other road in our city that was quite alarming to us for 300 homes.
I can certainly provide a comment letter saying that, the city's planned a regional park within, a quarter mile of the proposed site of development, and these new residents are likely going to use this facility and should pay their share of it, and we can ask them to provide some sort of mitigation, but that'll be up to the city of Bremerton to impose that sort of thing. That would be a SEPA condition.
Yeah, SEPA.
Yeah, if we could get them to pay 26.5% of the project, we'd be good.
Yeah, I think that the issue there, though, is going to be timing. I think that project, by the time the houses actually get built, you might be 5 or 10 years away.
Right.
So I think, we need to add some things to the scope. I think what we're hearing is we want to proceed with all of it. We can, and bring back the additional scope. And we're gonna, sounds like we could get everything ready to go all the way to that point and decide, we're not comfortable with where the housing market's going and delay going to bid for a year.
Just do them as bid alternates and
I guess proceed cautiously. I think these are all amenities. If we're gonna do this, let's do this park right and not come back and it's expensive to come back and redo stuff.
And I think you'll have a much better idea of specifically of what's happening with McCormick West and Stetson Heights in 6 months or a year than we do right now. But right now, Stetson Heights we've been waiting on them to revise something for 6 months now, and they say they're going to get it into us soon, but we haven't seen any movement. But once that gets through the permitting process and they actually have a preliminary plat approval, I'll feel a lot more comfortable when I see progress on construction. And that's likely to happen between now and next June. So I think, we should bring this back for full council discussion, but I think we should go ahead and tell the consultant to proceed with designing it as bid alternates. And if they're not going to write the bid spec for at least 5 or 6 months, so they can, if we decide we just want to include it without making it an alternate, that's not a major change in the, mid-process.
And one of the big ticket items here is that water.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And there was a significant difference in the cost of the two water features. So, there are choices for us there.
Yeah, I guess we haven't decided which water feature we want to move with.
There's a little wiggle room in here.
Yeah, and the one had a longer use period and probably higher water fees to us. But it was a 6-month active element. And the other was more expensive at 3-month, but we would only get 3 months worth of water, not 6 months.
Right.
So, there are things to discuss.
That's 40.
Okay.
How do you feel about, the dog park is sort of a new idea. It wasn't in the original master plan for the park. And so, I know that dog parks are a sort of polarizing thing. People either use them or they don't use them. And how do we need to go to the community and ask them about that.
Where's the nearest dog park?
Mile Hill.
Mile Hill on the other
Yeah.
side of the city. So to me, this seems like not only is it providing options for people who live more, 15 minutes away from the nearest dog park, but I mean, there's traffic implications if you have a facility on each side of town. I mean, that is.
I think it makes sense to do a dog park. I think dog parks are in greater demand than we probably generally hear about. And there aren't a lot around here. There's one near Gig Harbor that actually shares its
Yeah.
parking with the fire station. There's Clear Creek, there's one on Mount Hill, the farm.
And again, my only concern, I'm not a dog person, but I appreciate people that are and understand the need for dog parks. My concern is distance from the kids' play area. Most dog parks, again, using Chambers Bay and Clear Creek as an example, there's quite a separation because some of the kids are going to be afraid of the dogs. Some of the dogs are going to want to go where the kids are. I mean, I just think there physically needs to be a bit of a separation
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And they're completely fenced in, they're closed.
Yes.
The dogs still have to get from their car
Right.
to the,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so I would agree on the dog park. I think the other benefit is that dog parks, even in the winter and rainy months, they get year-round use, and so it keeps people in the park to keep an eye on things. And an empty park is where you're going to have problems, but as long as there's constant use, I think you're going to have better security and less vandalism and
Right.
other issues.
What do we have to do to maintain the dog park? I mean,
It's really emptying trash, and depending on what we do in terms of water, if we run water out to the dog park versus, I've seen rain barrels that use cisterns for providing drinking water for the dogs.
So the one at Mile Hill and the one at Bandix, actually, they're managed by volunteers. Volunteers bring water and jugs and pretty much take care of that.
Yeah, the one in Point Defiance in Tacoma, they have a little picnic shelter in the dog park, and they actually catch the rainwater from the gutters and fill a cistern for drinking water. But yeah, there's volunteers that bring bags out, and
Yeah.
the parks crew does empty the trash bin
Right.
every couple of days. But I think really the big issue for the city is the trash management and spreading new mulch or whatever the surfacing is periodically, and going in there and doing it.
We had a dialogue with the police chief just about, what this may look like. I mean, it's a Saturday and there's 250 people out there. I mean, is this something that's gonna add quite a bit of patrol time or just, you know what I mean? Just, it's gonna be an issue at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, just so it's on his radar of what this may look like and some unintended impacts.
Yeah, you probably will get a request, you're gonna have somebody wanting to bring a food truck out there during the summer too, or,
Yeah.
So
Well, you can't
just
have an ice cream truck that comes, circles around.
going back to the dog park for a moment, is it my memory that we were going to look at that area that had been clear cut,
yeah.
putting it there?
Yeah, it's sort
So
of
that-
midway to the north.
Right. So that reforestation wouldn't necessarily need to occur to put in a dog park and a closed dog
Exactly.
park. Okay. So that kind of kills two birds with one stone at the same time.
And it's lower maintenance probably than putting in, if we were to bring in topsoil and try to reseed that and establish it as a meadow, then you're gonna have mowing and, initial temporary irrigation and, maintaining a dog park is probably less work than
Right.
that.
Other than the landmines,
Yeah, so.
Other than what?
the landmines.
That was
Yeah.
kind of my question.
Maybe the only final question I had last night, if you get a chance maybe to talk to our consultant, is what did he mean by a temporary irrigation system?
Sometimes you need temporary irrigation to get plants established, but once they're established, they can tolerate, dry periods. But until they're established, they have a hard time. So usually it's a 1 to 2 year.
Is it gonna need a permanent irrigation system? Follow
The
grass
lawn,
areas?
lawn absolutely is going to need permanent irrigation.
The
A meadow,
is more, you mow it once, it's,
Yeah, not the meadow, I'm not talking about the meadow.
Yeah.
Just the
the
grass.
meadow
area.
is where he was talking about temporary
I don't think so.
irrigation.
I think he was talking about it for the lawn as well, but if you select the right species, you can do lawn areas that don't
I was
require
just curious,
irrigation.
because you would just zone that off and you would just eliminate those zones, just shut them off.
Well, a temporary irrigation is, you see on construction sites where instead of trenching, PVC is just staked on the ground with some sprinkler heads for, the first summer, and then you take it away.
any of our other parks irrigated?
Van Z's about to become irrigated. That's one of the problems we have at Clayton Park is, you know, the grass isn't healthy. We've got a wheat farm up there. I mean, I personally,
I noticed
think irrigation systems are nice, but the grass grows faster and nicer. I mean, it's more maintenance, but it does make it nicer.
that, I think irrigating Clayton Park is actually in the capital improvement program currently, and it's something we probably didn't fund in the schedule that had been established, but I don't know if that's if you want to carry that over into the next parks plan or not.
We probably do.
Okay.
We're about to do a project. We did, last year, we did some soil at Van Z and graded it out, and they put a irrigation system in it, but it's cannons, and somebody has to turn a valve and move the cannons, and we're gonna replace that this year with an automated system. And we got somebody in our public works staff that's got some experience in irrigation systems, so he's gonna make some modifications, and we'll have an automated system, and the soccer club is helping. They got
Oh, nice.
topsoil donated. So we're gonna have a really nice grass field there, you know, by the end of the summer.
Great, thank you.
All right.
So it sounds, I wouldn't mind getting a bid alternative for, not for that grassy meadow out
But for
there.
the common.
But the common area to have nice, I mean, that's where we got the entrance and the play area and have some nice grass, I think.
So we talked about a sitting wall to the north to keep vehicles out. Would that be a feature that would be used? Would people actually
Well-
sit on that wall?
To the north, what do you mean? The
Well,
north?
At the entrance.
At the entrance.
Yeah.
So the entry plaza, yes, there is a seating wall station there, but that's also, it's almost like a retaining seating wall because you have some grade issues out there.
Okay.
But the Mark had talked about extending that all the way along the bathroom, which I don't think is in the plan because he's worried about vehicles going in there. But we have talked about bollards and other.
I was just
improvements.
gonna bring that up. There
Yeah,
are
we
some
wanna-
other alternatives.
We want to make sure that vehicles can't get in there, but I don't think a seating wall is the most cost-effective way to do that.
Okay. Okay.
We've just got 4x4s going up there and ripping around up in there
Yeah.
right now. And we don't want that
Right.
once we make all these improvements.
As we move down the agenda, I realize Bob Showers is still not here, but I believe I can speak to number one.
Okay?
Okay, well, do we want to just slip it and see if he does show?
You can.
Okay, why don't we, if we're done with that parks discussion, and we know we agree we're gonna bring that to the council, then let's move on to item number 2 as it's shown on the agenda, the 2 and 4 hour parking on Main Street.
And Beck and I had a sidebar on this, and this came from Bobby Stewart's comment that the merchants downtown want 4-hour parking. We used to be 4-hour parking, and this is just kind of a history lesson of why we did what we did, and Beck did a really good job capturing it. It's in front of you there. I can
Yeah,
email it,
that's-
print it out. So we had a chain parking problem before. We used to get tons, when I talked to the chief, we used to get tons of complaints, and it was a problem, and we don't have, and I think the solution is the signage that we have. There's a lot of 4-hour parking downtown already. You need to know where it's at, and we have signs that are ordered.
They're about to be bid.
They're about to be bid, okay?
Public Works has everything ready to go.
Okay, so we're 60 to 90 days. I would like to say it's 2 weeks out, but it's not. That we'll have signage to direct you from Bay Street to the 4-hour parking that already exists. I would caution us changing the street parking back to 4 hours. The merchants
And
are the
just
worst
another
offenders.
part of this history lesson, the original request to move to 2-hour parking from 4-hour parking came from the Port Orchard Bay Street Association because the merchants were having problems with the chain parking. And so over time, you have, different people within the organization.
Sure.
And so I had reached out to a couple of their board members, and I said, when did you guys change? And they didn't even know that Bobby was asking the question. Definitely, it is not something that is supported by all of the merchants downtown. It's supported by some of the merchants downtown. So before we change it, I think there would need to be some consensus and some
Right.
agreement coming forward from.
Sure.
Holistically from the Merchants
Right.
Association, which
Yeah.
Bobby said she talked to everybody. She probably talked to the businesses that neighbor her. I'm not,
I think she said she did.
yeah.
You said the signs are 2 weeks out?
No, I was being,
It was
Limit.
pushing.
Oh, okay.
I'd say 60 days.
Maybe more. I think because we're
Okay.
ordering some more complex signs, I don't know that they're gonna deliver the easy to make ones sooner than the hard to make ones, so.
So it's the waysign finding signs, that project. We're going to bid on those signs, and then, I would think midsummer, we should have some signage down there on Bay Street directing you to the 4-hour parking that's free. The average person that doesn't live here drives down Bay Street and says, there's no parking, probably doesn't stop. So we're trying to direct people to where the parking is.
And then our staff has reached out to the Chamber of Commerce. Matt had indicated that he'd done some studies and maps, so we reached out to him to see if we can get copies of those to incorporate it into the public event toolkit and put it on the website. So as soon as we get that, we'll push it out as much as we can.
Be nice to have those signs up for, by 4th of July.
Yeah.
It'd be great, to. Any other questions on?
Okay. Waterfront parking. I agree.
That's kind of me, it's still, isn't it? Is that my waterfront parking?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going out next Tuesday to meet with the port commissioners. They have questions about what I proposed. They have, we've done horse trading. They want to make sure that, we're not gonna cut up what they have and then ask for ours back. So whatever we do, we're gonna need to, update our interlocal agreement and, they seem receptive to the idea of taking up some of that parking and expanding the park. And then I think from there, once we get heads shaken the right way, then, it's formalizing an agreement with.
So what's the time frame for that and funding mechanism?
There isn't any. It's a concept right now. I would say if we were gonna move forward, it would be funding a design next year, putting a design and money in next year. I think Larry Stokes is not big on consultants and designs, but he wanted to do it on the back of a napkin. The problem with that is it doesn't work very well for grant applications if you don't have public process. And if we just want to put some grass and a couple shade trees down, let's do it on the back of a napkin. If we want it, want it to be something more than that, then I think we need to spend some money on a process and a design. So, and
How many stalls are we talking about again?
there was 2 different concepts. One was about 90, and the other is I think we shouldn't be taking half the parking out initially. I think it's possibly a phased approach. I want to say it's 40. About 40 stalls is what was in that yellow, which was everything that would border our pathway, and then the 8 stalls next to the gazebo bathroom, and then the 1 row of parking on the back side that faces that side.
Well, I think, running consecutively with this planning process would be to keep our communication alive with the idea of a park and ride.
Yeah, that's step 2 before a design. Yeah, I think step 1 is getting the port commissioners that,
Right.
yeah, we want to do this. Then we have to get Kitsap Transit on which, John and I and Stephanie have talked a little bit about this, and we're identifying some churches in particular. Their churches are great park and ride, small park and ride options. They sit vacant all week long, and transit doesn't have to go build something. They lease it for pretty inexpensive. We've got some examples of that in the community already.
Yeah.
So, putting 40 cars somewhere, you know, and I think we should be looking at, you know, 50 or 60 or something to replace that 40, because I think that lot's getting full and getting fuller all the time.
The other thing that I bring up with this is the lots, as it sits right now, nets us about $50,000 a year in revenue. It's approximately $2,000 a week income to us, and then the overhead, you know, we net in round numbers $50,000. And so I believe that as we move forward, we have, with the park and ride, whatever we do, that's revenue we cannot just give up. We have to figure out how we're going to replace that revenue. You know, are we going to reprice the stalls that are there? I mean, there are probably many alternatives to us, but to me, it's an element that we can't ignore, that we need to address.
I think we're, in particular, after we provided another alternative of park and ride lot that gives you a free transfer down to the foot ferry, that we should be pricing what we have differently, and I think we can make as much revenue or even more with a smaller footprint. And then following up, we had another, you know, task that the chief, or Mark Dorsey actually reached out to Diamond, and I can't remember if that email got shared with everybody, but the ship's kind of sailed on, we spent about $25,000 on those parking machines we have 5-6 years ago, it seems. They're, you know, getting tired, so we're doing some upgrades to the base units are the same. We're going to spend about $5,000 modernizing these, and they'll have new displays and new keypads and new guts inside of them for about $5,000. We're proceeding with that because that was already in motion, and the chief's already got agreements in place for that. What we learned is that what we have for technology is a bit outdated, but if we abandon what we have, we're talking, you know, another $20,000-$25,000 expenditure to completely redo them versus just modernize what we have. The other thing we learned is, other than an enforcement tool and to rotate the parking stalls, 1 hour parking is not something we should be encouraging with those machines, because we're probably losing money on it. We pay a 40-cent transaction fee on every one of those. If we're charging $1 an hour, and then we pay somebody to drive down there and check those mark tires or whatever they're doing, or to read those stickers, we're probably not making anything on hourly paid parking. So obviously we are making money on the lot if you look at the numbers. So we're selling the lion's share of it as long-term parking.
Right, because the rest of the parking downtown is free, so if
Yeah,
you're
why
going
would
to
you
be
go?
there for 4 hours, why, you know, up to 4 hours, why would you go to the paid parking? So, you know, and that's one of the issues about making it not, I don't know,
Those machines I think should be programmed to deal with the commuter.
correct.
And if we've got excess parking down there, we'll probably need to make it 1 hour or 2 hour free parking versus, you know, unless we want it. What it does do though is create turnover, you know, and a management tool for making sure that it's turning over is the only positive to it.
All right, so we'll hear about your meeting with board commissioners.
I'll give it part of my mayor's report next Tuesday after I talk to them.
Okay. Item number 4, site-specific rezone proposal.
Yeah, and I just want to talk generally about a conversation that we've had with a developer, and this would have potentially eventually be a quasi-judicial process that the city council would have to decide on, but because there's no application pending, this is not, it's okay for you to talk about it at this time, but once an application is in place, you're unable to discuss it as an ex parte communication or prejudging that permit. We have a situation, right now our commercial zone allows multifamily housing by conditional use permit. We have an area where there is mixed use development proposed, and a conditional use permit was already issued for one site where the commercial development was going to be adjacent to the mixed, or to the multifamily development, and so the site as a whole was mixed use. There's now an adjacent site to that they're wanting to put more multifamily housing on and use the commercial portion of the other site to qualify as mixed use. And so our code, there's no clear distinction of whether that is or is not allowed as a mixed use development, or whether they'd have to amend their existing conditional use permit versus seeking a rezone. We do have a mixed use zone in the city right now that allows multifamily housing outright as opposed to as a conditional use. And so I have suggested to the applicant that rather than trying to expand their existing conditional use permit to take in more land area and add more multifamily housing to an existing development in a commercial zone, that they apply for a rezone to change it to mixed use, where what they want to do is allowed outright.
Can you speak to which site it is?
It's at Southwest Sydney.
The Rush development.
Yeah, it's Rush out at Sydney and Sedgwick. And so on Sedgwick, towards where it turns into Glenwood, on the other side of the existing wetland that's adjacent to the apartments, there's a small area that's developable, and they are hoping to put more apartments on that site.
Wow.
The other issue that they're up against right now is that our critical areas code has got to be updated by June of next year, and so the wetland buffers are going to be increasing, and they're going to have less developable area in the future than if they do something now. And right now there's no interest in doing commercial development there. So, I'm mostly sharing what I've told the developer, but if there's a strong preference of the committee or any feedback that you'd like to give me, I can certainly relay that. I've suggested that they actually apply for a rezone to get the mixed use zone instead of the current commercial zone, and that would allow them to do what they want to do outright, and would hopefully allow them to apply for something before the critical areas code changes and further restricts what is possible.
So are you talking kind of on the side with the Burger King and the Francisco?
No, the south side.
The other
Other side,
side.
this side, behind the apartments.
Behind the
Once you
other
start
side.
going around the corner on Glenwood, the commercial extends out Glenwood. And so I don't know that it's the most viable commercial site now, but it's certainly the amount of area that's there is not going to be a huge commercial development in the future if the regulations change. And they're talking about, I think, 68 or 80 multifamily housing units there. And right now they're only doing feasibility on an option. They haven't purchased the property yet, but the other issue that we have is that our current rezone chapter, we're in the process of updating, as we're also updating our comprehensive plan. And so the timing of this is sort of important, because we would like to have our comp plan finalized, because mixed use is a commercial zone, so we can change it from commercial to mixed use, but I'd prefer that the appeal period on our comp plan have expired before we go rezoning anything in terms of buildable lands analysis and whatnot. It doesn't change the capacity significantly, but I'd rather close the book on the comp plan, but not amend the rezone chapter until after they've applied. And the current process for rezoning property is purely through the city council. There's no hearing examiner involvement. And while long-term, I don't think that is, I think we want the hearing examiner hearing these things. In this case, I think due to timing and cost, it would be better to take it directly to council, and so have them apply after the comp plan is done, but before the rezone code has been amended.
What was the multi-jurisdictional piece of this?
What do you mean?
You mentioned that earlier, that there could be something. I thought I heard you use those words at the beginning. What it could be.
I'm not sure.
Okay, maybe there's not. Maybe I just.
Yeah, it's purely a city decision. I think it's, yeah, so I guess the real question is,
He was speaking to changes in the wetland buffers that coming about a year out that would change the landscape.
Or quasi judicial, maybe that's what.
yeah.
So when we're the body, you're the body that will hear this, and once there's a formal application, we couldn't have told you what the site was.
Yeah, but I mean, right now we can talk generally about it. And, I guess what I'd like to better understand is there a concern about loss of commercially zoned property that's restricted for commercial and mixed use pure mixed-use development where there has to be a commercial and multifamily component, as opposed to a commercial or multifamily component.
If it was fronting Sydney, I would think more so, but it seems to be, that's a bit around the corner even, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a ways back from Sydney, and it's, you know, it's not real visible from that intersection because it's around the corner. So, anyway, if there's any concerns, please communicate them to me, but I'm trying.
I don't know that I have any for what we've heard so far.
No, because I don't think it's an ideal commercial, I
Right.
don't see it, you know, ideally for commercial, and I think because of the other apartment buildings right there, that it makes
Right.
sense to continue that.
Okay.
So I'd have no problem with that.
And then the other thing that comes to my mind is just the added traffic impacts over there. Just has to be addressed at some point.
And they'll pay the traffic impact fees. They didn't last time.
And park impact fees if it's multifamily. So, and my understanding is their timing on this is that they would like to build it in 2017 if they move forward on it, but they haven't decided to move forward on it because of the uncertainty with conditional use permits versus rezones.
What's our impact fee for multifamily?
For parks, I think it's $500 or $600 per unit, and for single family, it's 11 or 811.
And then what's traffic?
Traffic is 16. Yeah, it's 1,600 for a multifamily unit per unit, and it's 25.52 for single family.
Is that weighted?
And those, and that intersection and section of road is on our,
Well, they're all
this.
weighted.
Actually, from 16
Right.
to the east
To Lowe's.
to Glen, well, from 16
Glenwood.
all the way to Glenwood is,
Horrible.
we have a project identified on our tip.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little side.
All right,
Anything else on that?
that's all.
Okay. Item number 5, capital facilities and utility analysis.
Yeah. So we are bringing these to you. They've gone to the planning commission already, and we didn't have any public testimony. This is just a chance for you to get a first look at those and give us any feedback that you might have. We have put together a full book of the comp plan for our public hearing at the planning commission on the 3rd, and so it's as it's presented today is how it's being presented to the planning commission. But if there are minor changes, those are things that we can make between the planning commission hearing and when council takes up the issue and we bring forward a final ordinance for adoption.
In the utility section, the utility committee did receive a copy. We really didn't go into any detail other than say, take a look at it and provide comments to the planning.
Were any concerns brought up from the planning commission on these?
No, I don't think so. And obviously, we have system plans for each of the utilities that are much more comprehensive than this. This is really an overview that's just general information for the public. I think jurisdictions are now getting away from actually publishing, especially their water system plans, too much detail. You don't want that information in the public sphere just due to health concerns and possibilities of bad people doing bad things.
So I had a couple comments, but you and I can go over them after this meeting,
Okay.
if you'd like.
Well, I would like to hear you.
Okay, so,
Which element are you in?
okay, capital facilities. I was just curious about policy 25, studying new jail facilities. Is that something that's on our radar?
That's a legacy from the previous comp plan, just
Okay.
remained in here.
Should it remain in here? I mean, it's a good policy to have at any time, no matter where you are, but I just don't believe that's our approach to policies for our comp plan.
Well, I think there has been active conversation. I mean, there's the jail that was going to go out by the airport, and the city was going to be part of that conversation at some point. Was that going to be after Lake Floor? I don't know.
Current jail's nowhere near capacity though.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even see this as on,
No, what I'm saying is just that
There
from a
was-
policy standpoint, because there has been conversation about a new regional jail that was gonna be located, that would be jointly used by the cities and the county. I think
That was a private facility, wasn't it? The talks was a private. Back in the day.
I guess my comment was, do we need that? I mean, I understand it doesn't hurt. to
I
have
think it happens anyway as part of a permitting process. I don't know that you
Yeah.
need a comp plan policy for it.
Okay. And number 27, the last sentence of number 27 talks about citing a senior high school located near a community center. And I know that we're looking potentially at a new senior high school, but it's not near a community center.
Yeah.
So maybe tweak the wording on that a bit?
Yeah,
So
and
we're not,
that is a local
Sure.
center.
sorry?
That is a local center in our plan, so, maybe we talk
change
about.
community to
Yeah.
local. Just the word community to local.
Yeah, because the high school's gonna have the OC slash
So,
center
right,
part
so
of its design.
maybe reword to say to be located near or developed with
Mhm.
community center facilities or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's, a lot of these, I just have questions about how we're gonna do this. For example, 29, how would we coordinate with the school district to provide and enhance safe multimodal access to the schools?
We provide them notice of all project permits and ask them for
Okay.
comments on transportation impacts.
Cedar Heights was a joint, the multimodal improvements we went, there was a joint grant process that we went through to make those improvements there, so that's an example.
Okay.
of How we do it.
And number 28, develop strategies to ensure that students are not forced to attend a school outside their neighborhood. How would we help with that?
I did attend a committee that was talking about district or school boundaries recently, but aside from that, I don't know that there's policy or anything that we can do to compel the school board to make that
So that
reality.
should be, maybe that's a goal instead of a policy.
I don't think it's a goal.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a goal.
Maybe it should just go away.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, to me, that's a school district
It really is.
issue, it's not a city issue.
It seems like maybe it's one that ought to be struck.
I get what we're trying to do, we're trying to have fewer people on buses because they don't want to go to the school that's, they're looking out their window at and they want to go to the school,
Right.
for whatever reason, across town.
Right.
Well, and I think that, when I went to these meetings over the last 18 months, there are those issues where you have some schools that are, bursting at the seams, but they haven't made those shifts to where they've balanced things out, but they were trying to rebalance the district boundaries to make sure that this population's evened out a little bit more. So they might have moved more in that direction, but I don't think they've gone so far as to remove people from their neighborhood.
Well,
And again, it's not
It's
on
just
our
not
radar.
part of this,
Yeah, it's not part of our purview, I don't think.
Whole other.
Jumping ahead to 71, it says to identify areas within and adjacent to the city and its UGA which are highly sensitive. And then the next sentence says, establish standards within these highly sensitive areas. Well, I don't know that we have the authority to establish standards outside of the city, so that just needs to be tweaked a little bit, I think. Otherwise, I get the intent of that. And then that was it. I haven't actually, I read through the balance of it pretty quickly, so I haven't any other comments. Any other comments by anybody else?
Is there anything on utilities that you had?
Oh,
I have one actually back on page 2 of this.
Okay.
Just the sentence there, the second paragraph, the preferred alternatives is separate police station. I don't, we haven't come to those conclusions yet. We're doing this site analysis. The last second to last sentence, it says preferred alternative. I think
Oh,
an alternative could be a separate police station, not that we haven't determined yet what we're gonna do with our building and whether we're gonna expand this building or build a separate police station.
I would also redo the sentence directly behind it. I mean, those go hand in hand.
Yeah, we don't know what the space needs are yet.
Again, this was a carryover
Yeah.
of the
No, I-
existing
I'm
policy.
assuming.
That's where that's coming
Yeah.
from.
No problem.
Your first sentence there probably has to change them too.
Yeah, we don't have the lease space, we're stepping away from the lease space.
Oh,
We don't, we no longer have that police department lease space?
We won't in about 30 days.
Oh, okay.
well, good to know.
It's just not being utilized. Yeah, so that whole, yeah.
Okay.
I just focused on the one sentence that got my head, but that whole paragraph probably needs to, need to be updated, yeah. We're looking at options.
So looking at the paragraph directly above it, because I have not had an opportunity to read this yet, but the paragraph directly above it, it says, therefore, although the city hall
Yeah,
building is
correct.
currently adequate for the city's, we should plan for approximately 25,500 additional square feet of administrative space. Is that?
It's contradictory. Yeah, if we don't, it's not currently adequate.
We should talk about studying space needs and,
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're not, we know we're not.
we should say due to annexations, the
Yes.
city is running out of space, it needs to evaluate
The whole
its space.
section entitled City Hall.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it was trying to say is according to the calculation of what the needs are and the size of City Hall, it's, in
That's
theory,
what it
it's
was.
adequate, but I will change that.
But that was
Yeah.
a population of 9,950, and we're 13,500
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
now.
Anything else on capital facilities? Utilities? Any comments on utilities? Anyone? So, policy 21, encourage siting large above-ground utilities in industrial or commercial areas or along appropriate transportation and utility corridors. What does that mean when you talk about appropriate transportation and utility corridors, and is that identified elsewhere?
Appropriate to me, reading this would mean that it's where such things actually are suitable for the site, that it can coexist with the other, the primary purpose of those corridors for transportation and for other utilities, you're able to put these antennas or towers in there as well.
So that's really a site-by-site determination?
Yeah, and actually, we had a conversation yesterday, Mark, about, do you determine this through the franchise agreement negotiation process? Because when something is in the right-of-way versus on property, we don't review it for zoning compliance. It's allowed pursuant to a franchise agreement.
Yeah, we have, typically, it's in the right of way, it's under a franchise agreement. And then we have the ability to have that franchise agreement ratified and reviewed. And then cell towers on private property are a right of way issue. So we have somebody that's wanting to put a tower in the right of way, but they don't have a franchise. So it's a new scenario that we have to work through with them.
Yeah.
We've told them it's gonna take 3 to 4 months to
If they want to pursue
create
it.
a franchise and have us to go through the provisions of putting something like that in the right of way.
I guess we don't implement this policy through, if it's within a transportation corridor specifically, we wouldn't implement this policy through our zoning code, but we would implement it through SEPA review, potentially through the shoreline master program if it's near a shoreline, but,
Well, I guess what I heard was maybe we try and co-locate these, for lack of a better description. Maybe that's what it needs to read.
Well, we're
Because
trying to-
the reader looks at this and they don't really know what an appropriate transportation or corridor.
I'm just reading this as that we're trying to minimize environmental aesthetic impacts, and where appropriate, we're going to try to put these in commercial and industrial areas, but that isn't always where the need is. The cell dead zone may not be in the commercial and industrial areas.
But when I think when you're asking people to look at alternatives, do you have to put it in this residential neighborhood? Have you looked at these other areas? We want to be able to say we've established a policy. You know, you try to minimize impacts by looking at those areas in addition to your preferred location.
Okay. The readability of the maps, again, I don't know if that's.
These are secondary copies.
Yeah, okay.
So if you print the originals, they look a lot cleaner.
Okay. Policy 29, encourage installation of broadband infrastructure in all new residential development in development. What would the encouragement look like from the city?
We notify Wave or whoever that we're opening a ditch and that they can put
Okay. All right.
conduit in. It's
That's all that I have. I didn't look at the bounds in detail.
okay.
So in terms of the comp plan and implementation, what is the implementation component of the comp plan look like?
So we are putting that together right now, and we're proposing to include a matrix actually similar to Kitsap County as an appendix to the comprehensive plan. And so we're combing through the document right now and are identifying all the steps that we've previously discussed that implement the goals that we've created or that are continuing. And we'll be assembling that and adding it as an appendix.
So I don't know how many goals and policies we're going to be adopting here, but probably a fair amount. And I know that the county, as an example, has gone through and prioritized its goals and policies.
Mm-hmm.
And when it last did it in 06, I mean, there was hundreds of goals and policies, and they assigned a medium, high, low priority.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's something we're looking at, but that's a pretty big effort for the city to come together on.
What I've done so far in the draft that you have is only goals. So all the goals, and then what's the goal, what's the strategy for implementation, who's responsible for the implementation, which department or outside agencies or combination, and then high, medium, and low ranking of priority.
Okay.
So again, we're trying to copy the county, basically.
Right. And the high, medium, low prioritization, are you expecting that will occur prior to its adoption this year?
Potentially, but it's something that we may want to take to council, and as we have next year's retreat, maybe that's the document that we use going forward for prioritizing.
Because it has the potential for being a rather large scope effort, that maybe we look at 2017 as the year to implement the comp plan.
I like this idea too. It's this document maybe that we look at in our
Yeah.
retreat. This is a long range.
Could we bring this to the next land use committee?
Yeah, we
meeting?
can also bring what we have to the next land use committee meeting and
Okay.
have some discussions on that.
And the importance of that is I'm stating the obvious, but that gives us, our focus as a city and council.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll put it on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
And just a reminder on the comp plan, so April 3rd is the hearing at the planning commission. May 3rd is the hearing for the planning commission. I'm anticipating a recommendation from the planning commission to approve it. We'll bring it to May work study so that the entire council can discuss the document, ask any questions that they have. And then I would like to schedule a hearing on it for the first meeting in June and possible adoption at that meeting, or if you feel that additional revisions are needed, we can do it at the second meeting in June. But I wanted to make sure that you have the opportunity to do it June 14th. And then if you need more time, you can take it. But we also have to we have to adopt the 2015 new building codes in June. So we have two deadlines, and that'll be heavier than normal code revision because we're trying to bring our building codes up to a more current standard because they haven't, the way they're put together now is very outdated. So a lot of work to do in June, especially if we take on the TBD issues as well.
Have you had a lot of good participation at the planning commission level on the comp plan?
Define good participation.
Okay.
By the planning commissioners, yes. By the public, we
Right.
haven't had a whole lot of interest.
Same, the classic issue.
Is there anything that our office can do to push out through social media?
We should,
Facebook?
I think we should, for the May 3rd hearing, because as we get closer to June, we know we're running up against a deadline. So I think the more we can let people know about the opportunities early on, because we're gonna get to the point where we're kind of stuck. And so I think that public hearing on May 3rd,
Yeah.
I think we should really work hard to get the word out.
And we have a stakeholder list of 120 or 130 people that go all the way back to 2014 when we did the first public outreach. So we have notified everybody who's identified as a stakeholder of that hearing, but we can certainly push something out on Facebook as well.
Right, because I think, that from my personal point of view, that particular stakeholders list of 125 is very limited. It doesn't get to the general population.
Which I think we have close to 1,000 likes on Facebook.
Right.
I'll send you the link after the meeting. and
Yeah, if you just send me
and
the
maybe like a
this-
blurb is, would be helpful to say this.
Yeah, tell me what you want, and I'll just cut and paste it and put it right in there. Yeah, and then
And
we'll
all
do
the
it every.
materials are accessible at this point?
Yeah, they're
That's
all on
what
the
I'm saying,
website.
are all, is the
It's
comp
one document.
plan easy to, because when I, this weekend went to the comp plan, I had to go to departments, community development, and then I had to find on the left-hand
Well,
side.
We can
Send
link
that
it to the
as a link.
homepage.
Front page.
Yeah, put it on the homepage too, yeah.
Is that you or is that Ellen?
The homepage is Clark's
I think
office.
it's the clerk's
Okay,
office.
so you
So if
have
you just
to-
send what link or item you want on the front page, we can make sure we get
We
it.
gotta make sure
Okay.
the link works too.
That was the weirdest thing.
Again, stating the obvious, probably need to get it out pretty soon because
Yeah.
it's some heavy lifting for people who haven't taken the time to read
Yeah.
it.
I guess,
How often
you know,
do you want me to push it? Once a week,
Yeah.
every 2 weeks?
one of my concerns, given that we've been having public hearings in process for the last year and a half, I hope that people aren't waiting till the last minute to bring a bunch of new concerns forward, but it can happen.
Yeah, right.
And Beck and I had some concerns too about that opening,
The introduction.
in the introduction, that.
Yeah, on that second paragraph.
That second paragraph just kind of has a negative tone to it.
Yeah, that was carryover from the.
Yeah, I thought
project.
that as you've discovered in this, there's quite a bit of legacy language throughout it, and it
Yeah.
needs to be,
Just, it needs to be more positive, you know?
Okay.
It's not that the statistics are wrong, it's how you're presenting it.
Right.
And I don't know what the information looks like, but if you can also have, if you don't already, for follow-up questions, contact, because I'm gonna do a cut and paste.
That's on our
That's part of it.
page.
Okay. I mean, when I send out that information on Facebook,
Mhm.
because what happens is when we push it out through Facebook, every now and again, we get somebody that comments, and so we don't want them to comment there, we want them to reach out to a department or a person
Yes.
for comment, so if we
Because
can.
I'm not going to be getting on there and commenting back to individuals.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so if we can have it within that language, it says, hey, we're updating our comp plan, blah, 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 contact, because we want that in the original, because all I'm gonna do is cut and paste, so that way the original content is within our email server and not on Facebook, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the location of where all these documents are, a blurb about what this is about, what we'd like you to look at, and then here's the contact info for follow-up. Okay.
Yeah,
And maybe we push it out 3 times between now and the 3rd.
yep, we can do that.
It's really a couple weeks away.
Okay, anything else on those chapters? If not, design standards.
All right, so, and I apologize, this got to you a little bit late. I just got it on yesterday or the day before. The scope of work that we got from Makers Architecture concerning developing design guidelines came in. I think that, if I remember right, I think you've seen some of the scope of work previously. We now have a fee to go with that, and it came in a little bit higher than I was hoping, but still not outside of what they told me it would likely cost. And so it's $39,845 to do this type of project. And essentially the deliverables are going to be something that can be codified, and it's a full street essentially they're gonna come in and they're gonna look at all of our street types in the city, and they're gonna come up with street categories and then design guidelines based on the character of our existing streets. So it's not going to be zoning specific so much as it's going to be, you have the Bay Street corridor, and this is the standard on Bay Street. You have the Mile Hill corridor, and this is how things are currently appear, and this is how we want them to appear. And so there's a public process to really figure out what each of these areas ought to look like, and then there's design standards for architecture, site design, everything down to pedestrian improvements, vehicular circulation, amenities, the amount of glazing on a building.
Where my mind goes immediately, because I had just looked at this morning, is this the start of the sub-area plan for the various local centers?
It overlaps with that. I think we are starting, as we're wrapping up the comprehensive plan, we're starting on transitioning to some code updates, and one of the things we talked about is the need to have more than one commercial zone. And so I'm starting to think about what that framework looks like and what the 5 or 6 different commercial zones would be. And so I think that this is more form-based in terms of where, what things look like where, but it doesn't tie into the use quite as much. And so the sub-area planning needs to look at use and design. But I don't think that the sub-area, that this will feed into our sub-area planning quite nicely, I think, without requiring significant revision down the road.
I guess my question is it the cart before the horse? I mean, does the sub-area planning and the design planning move parallel with each other? Or, and I don't know, but I know that we put some effort into creating our local areas,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to put a plan behind them, and we need to prioritize which sub-area plans get
Mm-hmm.
done first, and will that make a difference as to what the design looks like in an area? Depending
Maybe.
upon
I
what
think
the use is.
I think this is going to be a baseline for, these are the minimum standards for the city. I think that as you get into sub-area planning, you may want to add additional layers to this in terms of we want these additional standards above and beyond for a particular area of the city. But because development is happening now, I think the concern was that we get something in place to make sure that we don't have metal buildings going up on corridors that we're envisioning as being something more than metal buildings and parking lots.
I think to your point, ideally, if you had time to look at these sub-area plans and the design elements associated with that, you can do that. But I think if somebody pointed out, we've got some metal sided buildings going up along Bethel, and so
And is this in our budget?
That's right. This is a 12-month project, and we need this. But I think I would ask that if this committee's comfortable with this, that you make a recommendation to, if your recommendation is to move this forward, the next step is this needs to go to finance, because we've got to prioritize. We've got an IT, we knew going into this budget season, and we've got ending cash from last year that we're going to utilize for the IT. I haven't met with Alan yet this morning, but I know he's got the number, and I won't be surprised if it's around between the hardware and the implementations, probably $180,000. We've kind of informally made a decision to put the brakes on our residential paving program this year, because we're going to finish Bethel, and we've got we've already spent some of our paving money on a water line break where we had to repair the street, and so we've got potentially some paving we're going to do down the waterfront, but we're going to need to do some prioritization. Matter of fact, I was signing checks the other day, and I noticed, wow, the jail bill in January was really big, so I asked for a report in February. I haven't got the bill yet, but I know the bed days, and the jail bill is going to be significantly more than we budgeted. at least for,
The medical thing, yeah.
yeah, I've got it, I'll share it with the finance committee when I've got a little graph and it's going like this. And then I think we're committing crime and we're putting them in jail.
I think there's a few other general fund unbudgeted
So
tasks that I've already gotten approved, so yeah, I think they're.
I think this is absolutely something we should consider, we want to do. It's just where does it fall in the prioritization? And I think hopefully there's another step here where before we go to the full council, that we're checking in with finance committee so that we can,
Why don't we just bring this to the finance committee
well,
next week? Which
I
is
think-
to get it on our radar, I mean, two of us are here, but.
yeah.
Just so it's part of the global discussion.
I think from our work study, everybody liked the idea, at least didn't know the number. So I guess if this committee's comfortable, I think that the next step would be to take it to finance to, where does it fall on our list of priorities?
I would support that recommendation.
And this is support through adoption?
Yes, this
Okay.
is, public process, drafting documents, revising documents, and taking it to the planning commission for recommendations.
Okay.
I think Mark's moving on to the next issue.
Is he, okay, all right, so.
Well, I'm just,
Does everybody else have the map? In their packet?
Yep. Okay, so we're to item number 1, changing the name of the Bellfield and Gibbons.
Oh,
So are we doing then,
Well, yeah.
is this the Nest Street vacation?
Let's tackle Bob showers first. I think
Okay.
that's
And I will speak to
yeah, I'm
that.
just getting in advance, so you guys.
Okay.
I will speak to that a little bit in that I happen to be president in Southwestern Little League when it was originally named Art Michelson Little League Field in 1978. And from what I've read in the email that Bob sent, is that since Art passed away, they simply want to change the name from Art Michelson Field to Art Michelson Memorial Field. And then there's I didn't realize it was a lane, but there's
Right.
an entrance that people using the concession stand working back there. And they apparently
it's
want.
private. I don't think it's a city.
It's not, it's just a private lane, and they wanted to name that. And I personally would have no problem with supporting their request.
I agree. Was there any cost to the city with signing or anything like that by doing this?
No, I don't think there's any, I was gonna get together with the code enforcement, he does the addressing for the city, and just confirm that there wouldn't be any address changes.
Is
'Cause
there
I know
anything
that's
like that?
usually the number one concern. And then to determine, does he have any heartburn with it? I know that the council hasn't set any policies on how they move forward with changing names of streets or dedicating. It's just more gone to this committee, and if it's something formal, we put it in a resolution and pass it. So I did want to make sure that the committee was okay with it, and then I can move forward to the next step, which is communicating with the DCD department to make sure that there isn't any unknown consequences, I guess.
And he says a small driveway area, which is what it feels like more than in the street.
Yeah.
It's, I've driven it back
Yeah.
behind Gibbons Center.
Yeah.
The parking area.
Yeah, back to the parking area.
And then he didn't mention it, I don't think in his email, but he did put it on the plan. And so to me, it's indicating that he wants to place an art sign. So I don't know, I'm assuming it's just a street sign he wants to rename, but I just wanted to clarify that with him to make sure it's not some sort of monument sign. And if so, then again, they need to reach out to the DCD department to see what the rules are of placing some sort of monumental sign. So just wanted to bring that to
Yeah,
his
and
attention.
On that issue, if they are looking for some sort of monument sign, it really ought to be a city sign, because city signs are treated differently than other signs, and so as long as
Correct, we want to get in the sign.
Correct, right. So, I mean, it indicates it's a street sign, but I just wanted to make sure, so we don't go down this path and it's approved, and next
If
thing you know, you
it's
get
a
this big
sign we're
concrete.
gonna create, though, they should have to reimburse us for it, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and on that same note, I mean, we're using our wayfinding program. We have signs for Van Z. getting ordered in from McCormick Woods or McCormick Village Park, do we want the same sign and then put this new park name on it if it is going to be a monument sign versus having some other sign structure?
And I think I can just double check for the lease agreement, but depending on where it's placed, if it's placed within the leased area, then technically they can make the improvements. They have to pay for it as long as the city approves it. So I think there might be some, they pay for it and it's part of this improvement of the lease section, and maybe that's how we can get away with it being that they pay it, but it's still the city's type of thing.
Agree with the concept.
Okay. All right. Education. Are we on the vacation?
Yeah. Okay, so you got the maps with the last meeting, when we talked about this initially. We looked at what potentially would happen on Fremont between Port Orchard Boulevard and Sydney. And so to continue the Fremont plan to the east, looking at the property in question that I'll say goes up to that platted alleyway, that it looks like there would be an 11.5-foot impact. And so we talked about 15 feet, and that makes perfect sense to say that we would vacate anything but 15 feet here. And then we need to make sure that we related to the applicant that this garage should be set back 35 feet from the existing property line.
Okay.
To ensure that they'd be 20 feet back on the setback. So in the future, he'd still have a 20-foot setback and not be a non-conforming.
So which parcel?
This is right here, right? What he's referring to is right here, this section.
So we're looking at this map, is this where the 15-foot is, or is it over here? Because this is where the existing structure or garage is, this is where the home is, and this is where they want to put that latte.
Right, isn't this,
So that's, it should be,
it's this,
I think it's over here.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
Here's where the alley is here.
oh, I thought we were down this,
Mm-mm.
No, no,
this
no.
alley.
No.
No.
Okay, well then
So
it's,
shift,
okay, then it's just,
shifting over.
so it's Flower,
Here's Howard,
so he's wanting to vacate
right,
that, an open alley?
yes.
Oh, okay, well, that's completely unopened.
So-
Well, the issue
So
there
that's not
is,
staggered, right?
Right, so if we're over here into this
we are,
alley, then it needs to be further, because there's a 15-foot offset.
Where? Right here. So is it 15 or 20? Because it's my understanding, in speaking with Stephanie yesterday, that there's a certain policy in place right now that states that Tremont only has a special condition that it's 20 feet from versus 15.
well, no,
where
it's
everywhere
20,
else.
the setback's 20 feet.
20 feet.
I'm talking about the front yard setback is 20.
Okay,
What I'm talking about is, when you look at my map, when you go to Port Orchard Boulevard up to that, you go to that first alleyway and then you go to that first street.
which should be Howard,
Back
right?
there, so it's.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that,
roughly here.
so that's Howard.
So that's.
And then this should be Flower, right?
You can kind of follow the line.
That's Flower, so, okay, so it's just in here.
Yeah,
So it's just, all you're gonna do is add 15 feet. So what we're gonna say is, we shouldn't allow him to purchase the 30 feet. Because there's this shift when you get to that first
So 30 feet of that.
30, they need 30 feet,
all the way
right?
across here.
Because, yeah,
It's an alley there.
Right. So this thing continues across. So just forget this. Because when they did probably the Tremont Lighting Project back in the early 90s, they were able to obtain something maybe for the Port Orchard Boulevard, I don't know, but they went up here and they stopped. And so, yeah, you got 30 feet by whatever that width
So the second question that we were, do we want to trade this for this and continue
Right.
that swath?
Yeah, if this offset was not there and it was just a strip, I think it would be pretty reasonable, but, you know, I think that's,
There's a significant value.
that's pretty big to take 30 feet times whatever that length is.
120 probably.
We end up writing a
Big check.
big check versus just making sure we don't give up this 30 feet right here, and we sell him that
And so his setback needs to be
50 feet.
50 feet. To the building.
And you were gonna retain an easement across the area that was going to be vacated?
No, we're just not gonna, we're gonna keep it.
Yeah, because there's no utilities,
We're just not
right?
gonna
There's no need.
vacate.
We won't vacate
No,
that
no.
30 feet.
But he wants to vacate more than 30 feet.
Right.
He wants to vacate.
Right, were we
This.
gonna retain an easement through the balance of that?
No.
Okay.
You know, we could ask him, and I don't know tax law very well, but if he could donate the excess value, if there's a difference between the two values, and potentially that's of benefit to him. So he may want to trade, we would present it to him, but he'd be being more generous.
He's not in favor of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a conversation with him yesterday, and it's my understanding that where the garage sits now, and he did a measurement, it's 15 feet from the current right-of-way. And so that's where they were gonna improve or build the garage. And so when I had mentioned to him yesterday that we got the preliminary plans, but I don't know what the footage is, if it's 5 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. And he says right now it's 15 feet, so he's not gonna be happy when we come back. And one, he wasn't happy when we told him 20 feet because of Tremont, and then he's gonna hear 30 feet, and then now he's gonna
You're 50 feet.
50 feet because it's 30 feet from the right of way that he can't touch, and then he can't build within 20 feet from the 30 feet, which is now 50 feet, so.
Well, he can, but we're just suggesting that he may not want to
Right,
based on
because
what
we're gonna
could
come
happen in the
through.
future.
Yeah, so he wasn't happy, and he, mentioned, this is just an FYI, he mentioned maybe looking into some legal counsel on this process, but,
Well, we don't have to sell him the right of way.
Yeah.
right, but I did ask him, I did confirm,
We can make
is
his
he wanting to
life-
move forward with the street vacation, at least vacate, and he said yes. So I said, okay, I said, that's how we're gonna move forward, and once I get this footage here, so it's gonna create an odd shape, but it's my understanding we'll vacate, everything after the first 30 feet of that right of way, is that correct?
First 20.
I thought it was 30.
First 30. 30.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll need to confirm.
okay,
We'll need to, I scaled it off the assessment, but we'll need to verify with Dees. It looks like it's 15 feet. So we've got the 15 plus the 11 and a half, which we're gonna just round up to 15, so it's 30 feet. The reality of it is I know in talking with Larry Curls, part of the reason they didn't have any issues getting that 1991-92 Tremont Wyman project built. This guy became a problem, and I think that's why they didn't take it all the way to Sydney. And so if this project were to move forward at some point, obviously after Tremont Phase 1, after Bethel, when you look at this drawing, we're buying potentially, we're relocating potentially houses.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of what I'm saying is the first meeting is the project will dictate the need, and to try to do something now other than just kind of what we're doing. When we were talking about trying to do a swap,
Right.
I think,
I think you've convinced me of that.
it's just.
We just need to hold on to our 30 feet though,
Right.
and not sell it, and not buy it back later,
Right.
3 times the value.
Right.
Yeah.
There is another issue here that I'll just make you aware of. I know that he is interested in applying for a comp plan amendment to change the land use designation of part of the site. And so but the problem is because we have to do our periodic update this year, and our deadline for individual comp plan amendments is June 15th, we can't process his amendment until 2017 because you're only allowed to do it once a
Where
year.
does he want to go from to?
I think he wants to go to commercial. He wants a coffee stand on part of it.
yeah, what he's proposing is land, so he owns this whole block, this whole section here, and he owns these 3 here. And so what he is planning on doing, so is this, I don't know if it's existing, but he has a house here, he has
So
a
where's this
garage
house?
structure.
Where's this house?
This is Tremont here, Howard Flower, and so this is where he's wanting to vacate. And so they own this parcel here, it's one parcel, and then they, or excuse me, is that how that works? Let me see myself. Okay, yeah, so they own this parcel and this parcel here, and so they want to vacate it and
And
shift
the
it.
homes up here on the top of this?
Yeah, there's homes
His
all around
home
here.
goes right.
Yeah, and I don't think, if you're looking at this home,
Yeah, that's.
I don't think that's his,
You don't
unless he
think so?
rents it, yeah. I used
Okay,
to
so
live
he's
in that
getting,
house.
so there's a home,
Can't see it because of the trees.
Yeah,
Is it
it's up
buried in the
there.
trees there?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
He's the guy that, this, so just to the east of Howard, that big lawn area,
Uh-huh.
that's where
That's his
that
property.
block wall and,
Okay.
and
Those
he built,
tents.
yeah, he built that wall like right up to the property line. And I remember, again,
Yeah.
we had a slight distance issue coming out of Howard where that vegetation, that's where the house is in, and he's recently built a fence. I had I won't say it was a confrontation, but we came and said, look, we need to maintain sight distance for people coming out of Howard because we'd had a complaint, and we had to cut back this vegetation that was in the right of way. And he was being pretty obstreperous with the crew, so I had to come out and talk to him, and we finally calmed him down. But yeah, that was my understanding why they didn't continue with that project, was they didn't want to have to deal
Well,
with
if we're gonna need to buy all that in the future, we don't wanna take the zoning to a higher.
well, he wants to, so he's gonna either improve the house here. There's a structure here where either it's the foundation of a garage or it's an old top-plated garage that he wants to improve it. And so he's been told that in order to improve this garage, he needs to somehow combine these lots so that way he can have a garage and a home. And then when he does that, he wants to take either these 2 blocks here and put a latte stand on it. So he wants to do a home, a garage, and a latte stand all by the end of the year, is my
So
understanding.
is his house that big?
That's why he wants to do that comp plan.
Yeah, and
because He
that's-
doesn't want to wait until next year.
Sean, you made a great point that if the city council, which has full discretion over comp plan designations, if we increase the zoning of that and then have to buy it later, the cost is gonna go up. So that may be an incentive for him actually to trade us as a way to make it easier for him to get the, land use designation that he seeks.
Or he sells us the land we use.
So Randy,
Yeah.
his,
And he did mention that there's some sort of old storm pond retention here that he's not quite sure how that would work if he put his latte stand in there, how all that would come into play, and I don't know.
so is his house this big house back here that's
No,
around?
it's-
No,
we think it's
uh-uh.
under the trees.
Well, I know that there's a house, but he doesn't own this other house on Howard.
Correct, he does not.
He just has the house that's here to the west of Flower,
Mhm.
that's in the trees.
Yeah.
We're getting down in the weeds now.
Yeah.
All we know is we don't
Well, I
want
just
to sell
want
them
to make
30
sure,
Right.
in case he calls.
We'll deal with the other stuff later.
Oh, so in the trees is where the garage is, and then the home is over here. The
And
home
this
is-
was before the fence went up.
So the home's up here and the garage is here. He does not own this corner piece here. He owns this strip here, the right of way, and then this big block there. And there's a home that's here underneath this tree. Maybe that's what the tree you were talking about. There's a home there. This is where he wants to put the latte stand, and then this is where the garage is that he wants to update.
Ingress, egress on Fremont for a latte stand would be.
And the impact fees for a latte stand.
Is someone trying to turn left into there?
Well,
couldn't-
that's what I'm
It would be
saying.
right in
Right
only.
in,
Right
right.
in, right out until the turn lane got built, where the widening was.
Or he built the turn lane.
Yeah, that feels fine.
Sell a lot of cups of coffee.
Okay, so this is scheduled then to go back to council.
Right, I think.
Yeah, there's a public hearing set for May 10th, so we'll go ahead and move forward with the public hearing process. We'll do the outreach notification requirements as well as the posting. I'll communicate to him that the recommendation from the committee is to not vacate that first 30 feet, but they're willing to vacate the rest of it.
So could we get just more clear site plans about what's being proposed? Because maybe
See, here's, so this must be the right of way line.
Up
See
there.
this offset?
Yeah.
That's gotta be this line, whoever did this map, Olson,
Mhm.
we need to confirm that that's not there. That's confusing.
Okay.
Are we?
Yeah, notice that jog.
And then I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's that depth.
Everybody wants it. Can you send this? I think you can go to the course and wait for the. Yeah, I need to do that. Thanks for reminding me.
So I think that's it. We're adjourned at 9:05.
So I'll get a hold of Dempsey at
Okay.
Olson Associates.
I'll email it to you.